risk at all.
The decision maker is
The decision makers are politicians. And sometimes the political decisions are influenced by interests. And it was interesting that Kamau Ichung'wa's published a bill on conflict of interest, which is an entirely different ballgame. So when countries succeed or failure, 90% of the time, it's not about public servants. Because the public servants have got that capacity and they've got the competence.
To do what
it's about when you offer proposals to the people who've been elected, they're the ones who take the decisions.
And that's why those are the ones that we elect to keep in office or to remove from office.
And you fire them.
Now, let's take a break. We'll continue shortly. 28 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Dismas Mukua. He's a political risk analyst. He's our guest this morning. We are tracking the promises of the Kenya Kwanza administration and checking is the country headed in the right direction. Dismas, you know Showmax. You know Showmax, right?
Yeah, from watching this station. Yeah. No, I'm largely analog. I'm a village boy, so I'm not at home with this new technology.
Of TV.
My friend, Edna has just been telling us here how men in Kisii and Nyamira are switched on. They are digital, and then you're coming and saying the men in Kisii are analog. The men are villagers.
Did he say comes from Nyamira?
Huh?
Comes from Mosocho.
And I'm in the minority.
In the minority.
I stand to benefit.
There's a beautiful show on Showmax.
Indeed, there is. Picture this. A lady, her name is Esther. There's a bag. A child stumbles upon this bag and fiddles with the bag, opens it inside. Money. She says, wow, jackpot today. She goes to her three friends, and says, look, man, found this money. What do? We are churchgoers. Do we take this money and say, church, here, I found this money? Or do we say, my future now is secure? So they're dealing with that moral dilemma. Now, she finds out that this money are the proceeds of a crime in which her brother is involved in. And the kingpin of this supposed crime group wants to find out where his money went and who took it. Can you see now the drama that's already starting to unfold?
It's a lot of things.
Many things happening at the same time, but you want to know, don't you?
Yeah, then now I've got an incentive.
It's Showmax's original title. It's called Faithless, and it's another release that came out last week. Another episode unfolding this Thursday for you to find out exactly what is going on with Esther and her friends, Ruth, Hope, and Deborah, and her brother Benja, and Kane, who wants to find out what's going on. Hey, Showmax.com says get on it and find out what this story is about. A really interesting story unfolding every week.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Hiya, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda.
I mean, I don't know.
What are they
How
saying?
are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So
See?
Your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of the
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's 11 degrees. It's sunny in Nairobi this morning. Highs of 24 and lows of 11 today. Sunny at 13 in Nakuru. Highs of 26. 24 will be the high in a...
Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Brought to you by Colgate. Ushindi cleans like no other. It lathers more and lasts long. Ushindi, a long-lasting bar that removes all stains easily. When it comes to your motoring needs and likes, there is only one place where you will find the best automotive dealers and enthusiasts alike. You'll enjoy the best deals on vehicles, spare parts, insurance, and asset financing tailored to fit all your needs, all at the Digger Motor Show. It's the place you will want to be on the 20th of July 2023.
Jack Motors, we are the authorized distributor for light trucks and pickups in Kenya. The manufacturer is JSC Motors, which is based in FA, China, with a wide range of products. In our showroom, we do have N75 4-ton truck, and we also have T8 2000cc diesel turbo double cab. Other than the diesel versions, we have electric. The first double cab and 4-ton truck electric in Eastern Central Africa. Yeah, we have branches in Mombasa, Kisumu, and also here in Nairobi we have a branch along Mombasa Road and another one at Parklands. But our HQ is located at the River Road, just next to Subaru Kenya.
For a great time worth all your passion for bikes and cars and all types of vehicles, you will get the best experience at the annual Digger Motor Show with fellow petrolheads. Whether just to buy or to experience great motor engineering, find your way to KICC from Thursday 20th to Sunday 23rd July 2023 and be a part of the Grand Motor Show where business thrives and fun stays alive. For more information or participation, contact Caroline on 0723 803601 or email cnyandieka@standardmedia.co.ke. Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Brought to you by Colgate.
Bumper harvest. And you tell us we've also taken measures to ensure that through the national Kenya National Training Corporation to alleviate some of these problems we have with the supply of goods that we have in the country. Now, we are given to believe in the government until we observe that what they said isn't happening. Now, the test of the taste of this particular pudding is in the eating, and the eating is when they say, do we see it? Do we experience it? The story of a bumper harvest we have heard continuously, and that's precisely what we've heard. It is not the first time we're talking about bumper harvests vis-a-vis importation of maize. Even when it comes to the cereals, it's not something that is new. Mm-hmm. We know our internal capacity for production and we know the shortfall. But why is it that every time this discussion is had, we have to keep being referred to Ukraine, to Russia? And why is it that we don't hear of concrete plans to remedy what we can locally? Because are we saying that we do not have the capacity to feed ourselves? Are we saying that the government cannot come up with a strategy that will ensure that we actually feed ourselves?
As Latif indicated earlier on, food security is a national security agenda. And no debates, there shouldn't be any debate about it. And also, all these experts have given their proposals. But looking at what the Kenya Kwanza administration has been, they've indicated that for the first time, there is a significant increase of land under maize today. So, and I don't have the figures from the top of my head, but it suggests that there's going to be more maize harvested this season than in the past. And then obviously the clever folks at the Ministry of Planning as well as Agriculture, they will know the shortfall. And maybe we need to have that strategy of buying from the global market when the prices are very low and we store it somewhere in Kenya. You know, in some countries like Japan, Norway, the Nordic countries, they actually have food reserves for 7 years.
You told us this the last time.
Yeah, there are food reserves for
They have
7
some
years.
mountain somewhere where
Yeah,
they
there are
put
food reserves
under a
for
mountain.
7 years. All these, the critical things that make a state, they have reserves for 7 years.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering in Kenya, what amount of food do we have?
You're wondering with us, aren't you?
In our reserves, yeah.
In
Because
where?
you see, I've got an insurable interest in Kenya to ask ourselves,
But
how much food
I
do we
actually
have
think
in reserves?
I actually think this conversation about food reserves is all good and well, but when it comes to meeting the needs that we have on a daily basis, we've skewed this conversation. It's heading in the wrong direction, because as you have more land producing huge amounts of maize, the subsistence farmer who ought to feed themselves, because when they feed themselves, they can feed others as well. So even when you're talking huge national issues at the national level, and you're talking about National Cereals Board and what have you, if the subsistence farmer, the ordinary mwananchi as we call them, is able to feed themselves across the country, then this story of food shortage or the dire straits we find ourselves in will be enormously reduced, because these subsistence farmers also tend to feed their relatives who are in town. Now, I do not hear that conversation. The conversation I hear is for huge productions, massive productions. And yet, if you look at, let's forget Ukraine, let's look at our neighbor just across the fence and over a place called Uganda. Yes. Or even Tanzania. Their subsistence farmer is able to feed themselves and their family. Feed. They may not have money, but they can eat on a daily basis. Now, we cannot eat on a daily basis.
Now, you've hit the nail on the head by describing a basic concept in economics, that in Kenya we are largely consumers, we are not producers. And the reason why we are not producers, majority of us have moved into urban areas, and the few people who are left in the village, it's no longer in fashion for, say, a man my age or even younger to be engaged in farming. They think that hiyo ni kazi jolwedo, kazi ya mkono. But again, in as much as you can have that peasant farming, there's another concept that we are missing out. We don't have a really serious, heavy commercial farming in Kenya.
No, we don't.
You can produce for...
We used to at some point.
Yeah, you can produce 10 bags in Mosocho to feed your parents and your cousins. But you see now you're producing for that small unit. You may not have surplus. Excess, you may not have surplus to take to the market, which is, in my view, is a good reason why we need to have now this is strategic benchmarking, to go to New Zealand or Australia. When people talk about commercial farming, it's actually commercial farming. Heavy commercial farming.
Or even China. Mind-boggling quantities that are produced.
And now, still, let's go back to the basics. In Kenya, we do not produce toothpicks. So we have to apply pressure on the Kenyan shilling to get toothpicks from bamboo produced in China. You mentioned Uganda, because the entire of Uganda is 100% arable. Yeah? At some stage, we used to import chicken, eggs, tomatoes, everything from our neighbors.
Did we stop?
No, I'm not talking about that history. We used to. Even the cost of eggs, an egg in Uganda would be cheaper than an egg in Kenya. And in my view, that is why the Kenya Kwanza have said, let's now work on the farmer. Stop coming on this side. And in my view, for us to make progress, we must really work hard on those exports. So, some of the tax measures are very exciting. That instead of Nduye buying a seeds from my brother's here on Dagoretti Road, she has to go to Italy to go and get a bed from Italy instead of promoting our local folks here.
Yeah.
So in my view, for us to make progress, we must work tirelessly on those exports. I don't know, these are just basics in economics. We don't even need to reinvent.
Why do we work on exports when we can't feed ourselves? This thing of exports, I get it if there's a need, but is it not simpler to simply make sure people can eat before you start thinking of what to do with other places elsewhere that you don't control?
But isn't that just the basic thing that has happened in every... And this was, we have to look at it. Every country today that exports and is successful and is successful. Please note that the only reason exports came about is because the business of the country within had been completed to a satisfactory level. And so when they said, okay, we fed ourselves and people are buying from within, now how about we now start selling some of these things out there? You will find that countries today who export successfully do not have an internal food problem.
No, that addresses my point that we must encourage production, that when we've now got a surplus, we can export. And one of those things is by making Kenya an FDI destination. Because I bet if you get 5 commercial farmers from New Zealand and 5 from Brazil, and then we give them land, you can even give them some counties that are said to be, where you can have irrigation. They can produce so much maize that will suffocate us.
Do you think, I'm sorry, because, I think sometimes we can romanticize this idea quite a lot. But for me, it essentially comes down to actually just getting stuff done, right? We've already talked about the fact that there are experts within their own right, world-renowned individuals who sit in the planning departments of various government offices. They know what needs to be done. The uptake of the proposals that they make, the political goodwill to actually get things done, the desire to have something done for the entire population should supersede any kind of personal gain that can be got from these things. Should actually make people want to get rid of things like corruption and what's that other word you like to use? Impunity.
And the mediocrity.
Should get rid of all of those things. That is when you'll see these things happening, because it is not for lack of expertise. It is not for lack of resources. Kenya does have enough. It is not, does Kenya not have? Kenya does have enough. But for me, it is the person and the character and what they will actually do over the resources or the expertise that exist. So can we start having a conversation about, or can we continue the conversations which has begun in some quarters about just getting things done? It's getting it done. Is it not?
Now you're describing the situation where Kenya Kwanza finds itself in, change management. That they need to change the way things are done in Kenya. So the first thing was around that subsidy for consumption. So let's work with the farmer. And Eric has indicated is that it's actually the taxpayer who is now financing the production side, not the consumption side.
Yeah.
So the farmers, especially from Kitale, thereabouts, they keep on crying every single day that the biggest challenge is fertilizer. Mkitupatia fertilizer, we are cool. Now they have fertilizer, so we'll give them a couple of weeks to find out whether they've made progress. Now, the maize may not be sufficient for us to sell, but at least we'll say in this season, maybe our capacity has grown by 20, 30%, whatever percentage is. Then now we'll start having that, we'll address the food inflation. But in my view, the most important thing is getting exports. And how do you export? Is by getting the FDI. And part of the challenge that any administration which comes to, engaging in change management is that you have to upset the status quo. And we are told that for you to make an omelette, you have to break an egg. So in the process of breaking these eggs, there are some people who may be nervous, who are unhappy with the new environment. And then also Kenya Kwanza has to manage the citizens, partners, and stakeholders' expectations. So that people know that while today I could be having a Sukuma Wiki, there's a high probability that if they execute all these programs and policies, then tomorrow I'm going to have a paper steak.
Yeah.
Simply for one reason, that the typical Kenyan has no time for brewed tea or for brewed coffee. I see you are enjoying brewed tea. But people just want instant coffee, instant tea. Because if you're running on an empty stomach, you cannot be, say, wait a minute, give us another 6
But you see,
give us another 6 weeks.
It's all about, like you said, it's all about managing expectations, which, if we critically analyze this, it's two things that this administration, the previous administration, and maybe even the opposition administration falls short on: communication. All these things that we're talking about have actually been government programs. You see, we're talking about fertilizer subsidy. Fertilizer subsidy has gone to the farmers. Have you heard the government come out and say, these are the number of farmers who have actually received, like clear on a dashboard? Everybody knows.
County by
When you
county.
talk about the extra number of acres that are under maize cultivation this time, do you actually hear that as government communication directly saying these are the extra number of acres that are under maize and we're expecting maybe our harvest will go to this level? You don't hear it.
Well,
Because that also helps you to maintain that hope alive and keep the hope alive. All those things that we're talking about, going into the counties and encouraging farmers, encouraging subsistence farming, and also helping people to go back into those. The county aggregation and industrial parks are supposed to help with that. Because if you have those, you're talking about value addition at the local level, at the local farm level. You guys grow tomatoes in Kimana, Loitoktok. How do we make sure that those tomatoes are not going to waste? How do we reduce post-harvest losses? We have the aggregation and industrial parks. What do we need? We need chillers. We need what? The other day I had Governor Waiguru talking about you go to hospital and you have a running stomach. You're given, what's that saline water called?
ORT.
The ORT, right?
it's imported, isn't it?
We
Oral
import
replacement therapy.
saline water. Ni maji.
We have water and we have
Imewekwa
salt.
vizuri.
And we have sugar.
import,
And we have sugar.
right? Why can't we get these things done? If you listen to a government in various points, you'll hear all these things being said. You'll hear them being mentioned. I sometimes get a sense that they do not want to consolidate that message into one clear message because they don't want us to keep track. Because there are some people somewhere in between want to play the game of making money out of it. Last week, there were 2-page adverts. Some 25 counties have advertised for contractors to come and develop the county aggregation and integration parks. Ministry of Trade had placed an advert in the paper. It was here on the Standard last week. They don't talk about it openly, publicly, because they don't want you to know that these things have started. They don't want you to know about the tenders being issued. Why? It's all about just government managing expectations. Listen to the president. You can hear the president says talking about things, and there are things that he thinks are moving.
We talk about
They
food
don't
security,
move.
and someone tells you that we have acquired 40 acres in Zambia to grow maize. Now you tell me,
Now,
how does that address when we have 500,000 acres right here in Kenya, which is not fully utilized?
How does that even give you confidence
Yes.
that we are actually going to have food?
Yes.
I think the challenge has been about the strategic communication and storytelling. Kenya Kwanza has attempted to tell the story, but one forms the impression that that has been left to President Ruto, his deputy, and
His deputy is not communicating. His
Mudavadi.
deputy is fighting the media. His deputy's message is media is Azimio.
No, actually,
Yes.
I think for the deputy,
And that's the problem.
his only fault is that,
His only fault.
as far as communication is concerned, is that it does not sugarcoat issues. It tells you that we have this kind of crisis and that this is how we are facing it. One may say that in some other markets, they may be need to be a bit diplomatic.
Why are you telling us things we all know? I mean, as though you've just discovered it.
No.
I mean, what does he tell us that we don't already know?
No, but you see, he sits in a room where he's got access to information, and when he tells you that this is the kind of crisis you are facing, then you can take it to the bank. A few days ago, Musalia Mudavadi indicated that give it another 2 years before we can turn
gonna
the
be
corner.
rough before this
However,
storm is over.
again, the challenge they face outside managing citizens' expectations is that they work in an environment which has been characterized by a lot of propaganda. There is misinformation and disinformation.
Where from?
From Azimio. Like, for instance, let's take a good
And
example.
the media.
No, I'm not going to talk about the media. Let's take a good example of. Let's take the example of the aviation sector. When there were significant incentives in the aviation sector, taxation.
Yeah, for helicopters.
Yeah, the Azimio folks came up and said, we know now they're about to make money. They want to offer incentives to buy choppers. But the real story is
And we know Azimio people also own choppers.
Yeah, but the real story is that Kenya was losing its position as an aviation center to our neighbors. Because for people who have those choppers, and I see nothing wrong in having a chopper, you can have even 20. For those people who have choppers, they take them to Uganda for repairs. And the Wilson Airport here, the guys who started the human capital were being rendered jobless.
Yeah.
So you reduce the cost of those spares so that you create more opportunities. But because of the deliberate propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, is that these taxes are being lowered so that these guys want to buy choppers. Let's come to housing.
So Roti has been ahead of us when it comes to these aviation matters for decades. It didn't start yesterday.
No, but we're losing out because I've got people, I wouldn't call them my friends, but I know people who have choppers who are taking them to Uganda. But now with this kind of environment, it's coming back. And then let's talk about housing. The people who are opposed to housing, and you've hosted the subject matter experts who are saying that Kenya's problem is not housing. Kenya's problem is income. But when you've got a boost in the housing sector, you're going to address the housing thing. So there's been all those challenges. So in my view, Kenya Kwanza must also learn how to manage this propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation.
What makes you think they want to manage these things? What makes you think they're not happy with the status quo, that they're quite happy with the way things are?
I don't think that when Kenya Kwanza, the Kenya Kwanza leadership, when they wake up in the morning and every Kenyan is complaining about the cost of unga, the way unga is not coming down, I don't think they go back at home happy people.
How do you know this? How do you even suppose
they must manage this?
Bro, every single day, some people, many people, statistics tell us we're close to 5 million people who do not know whether they're going to eat or not. That number hasn't gone down, Chief.
I think the biggest challenge is for Kenya Kwanza.
So, Kenya Kwanza has been in power, we're going to a year now.
About 20% of the time. They've done 20%.
Are you telling me, even if it was 2%, are you telling me that everything else is more important than making sure that the people in your country have at least 1 meal a day and they're guaranteed? Are you telling me anything else is more important than that?
Food security is among the reasons why
it is not. It is the most, my friend, food. If people cannot be assured of even 1 meal a day, we have a very serious problem. And in this country, we have that problem already.
And that's why they're addressing the supply side of food by giving these people the subsidies.
Yeah,
but my view is,
if you know them personally, tell them their problem is communication.
Yeah, but before we
that
go
is
there,
their problem.
because I can see the clock is running, I formed this impression that it's as if there's a gentleman in a room winking at a girl in the dark. So you can wink the entire night for 12 hours, and then in the morning your eyes will be all red, but the girl has not seen your signs.
And you have your hand on the switch.
Yeah. So now
that guy's not winking.
Yeah. Then what they must
doing
do,
something else with his eyes.
What they must do is to manage those expectations by communicating their key successes. Communicating the Kenya Kwanza success must not be limited to the president, the deputy president, and the prime cabinet secretary. It's
and the success is not vanquishing the media.
All hands on deck. No. A few days ago, the ICT cabinet.
As a media meeting at night to plan the
Kwanza's
downfall.
The ICT cabinet secretary indicated that there must be a very solid relationship between the media and government, the fourth estate, and even Musalia Mudavadi indicated as much. And in my view, because I'm in the media must be ready to be criticized.
Of course.
And also the government must be ready to be criticized. But when you are offering your criticism, it must be done with some sort of civility, some sort of decency.
Definitely.
You must criticize the media.
Say to Tawazima. Yeah. Thank you, Dismas, for joining us.
I was just beginning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine.
That is what always happens. As you're beginning, as we bring it to an end.
Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. The leadership of Kenya Kwanza, Martha Karua, leadership of Azimio will be here.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Nizo. I'm Dennis Asset.
Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Brought to you by Colgate.